Hey everyone, welcome to the most opinionated space podcast on the internet.
Ad Astra, the podcast where we talk about the intersection between space, policy, and technology.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Newton.
I have a master's of public policy degree with a concentration in science and space policy.
And I'm a PhD in computer science and an all-around tech geek.
All right, so this is our usual episode, but a bit of a special episode as well, isn't it, Newton?
It's a very special episode because today we are, for the last episode of 2017, going to be talking about Star Wars. And get ready because this is going to be a spoiler review of the film. So if you haven't seen it yet, turn off this podcast, pause it, go see the film, and then come back to us.
Yeah.
Because we are going to be spoiling the hell out of this entire film.
And I think that's going to be the first thing I want to say about the film is that you need to see it. This is by far, and I'm gonna make a very bold claim here, that it is my favorite film since Return of the Jedi, which I would say Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars. And people may disagree with me on that. I know there's plenty of you listening.
I still agree with that. But Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars film. It is my favorite of the original trilogy. I just got finished seeing the film, so you are getting fresh reactions from me. Jack, you saw it the day it came out, I believe.
Yep, actually, technically the day before it came out. I saw it last Thursday.
On Thursday, yes. I would have seen it on Thursday, but I was on vacation in Africa and couldn't find a theater to watch it in, unfortunately.
Who goes on vacation?
But I finally have.
Millennials aren't supposed to go on vacation.
Crazy, right? I know, especially during Star Wars. I should have known better. I've been anticipating the December 15th release date since forever. So, but yeah, we can dive right on into it and start talking about the Last Jedi. So The Last Jedi is a film directed by Rian Johnson. It was written by Rian Johnson and George Lucas. Stars Daisy Ridley, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and John Boyega and Oscar Isaacs. And according to the IMDb webpage, there we go. Sorry. the IMDb webpage was a little slow to come up. But according to the IMDb webpage, the synopsis is, Rey develops her newly discovered abilities with the guidance of Luke Skywalker, who is unsettled by the strength of her powers. Meanwhile, the Resistance prepares to do battle with the First Order. That's a very short and concise explanation of the film. But
though concise, yet I think is a little misleading in some aspects. And we're going to get further into it. But that's, I think, what the main takeaway, if you're going to stop listening to this podcast like in a minute, the main takeaway you should have is that this is not the movie you're expecting it to be.
It's absolutely not the movie that you're expecting it to be. And so with that, I think we've given you guys all of the information that's sort of pre-spoiler. But now we're basically just going to walk through and just get our reactions to different parts of the film. So right now, like I said, if you haven't seen it yet, one, why are you listening to this after I already told you there were spoilers?
It's going to be in the title of the episode too, is that there will be spoilers in this episode.
And two, we're getting ready to spoil the hell out of this. So, let's start off with the opening crawl. Here's what we've been set up with. The First Order. It started off with the First Order reigns, having decimated the peaceful Republic. Supreme Leader Snoke now deploys his merciless legions to seize military control of the galaxy. Only General Leia Organa's band of resistance fighters stand against the rising tyranny, certain that Jedi Master Luke Skywalker will return and restore a spark of hope to the fight. But the resistance has been exposed. As the First Order speeds toward the Rebel base, the brave heroes mount a desperate escape. Now, when I originally read that, I was very interested in there being this like amazing opening scene of the film where they escape and then they move on with the film. But actually, the entire film is about this escape. That's literally the entire film. Everything surrounding what they're doing, except for the parts with a little bit of parts with Rey and Luke. Everything else is about this escape from the First Order and the Resistance trying to get away.
So what I like is that over the course of the entire Star Wars saga, from episode 1 to episode 8, and this is something I'm going to keep touching on about how it calls back to the prequels, but that you see the time between episodes, the difference decreasing. So for, the prequels, we'll just go in chronological order. So for the prequels, I mean, between episode 1 and 2 is a 10-year difference. Between episode 2 and 3 is 3.5 or 4-year difference. And then for all of the original trilogy, there was a 3-year difference between episode 4 and 5 and 5 and 6. Between 6 and 7, of course, there's the 34-year difference. But between episode 7 and episode 8, it's all of like 20 minutes. Like, not much time has really passed.
So that's the thing. A friend of mine pointed this out on another podcast that does like movie reviews and movie trailer reviews. In most of the Star Wars movies, there is a very cool movie in the scroll. In the scroll alone, there is like the most amazing description of a story that you really, really want to see. I mean, we saw this with Rogue One. That was a movie about a small mention in the scroll about a bunch of rebels getting this map for Princess Leia and the original rebellion. There's always this amazing movie within the map as we went on in those original movies. And as well as in the prequels, talking about the Clone Wars. I mean, they've made an entire cartoon series out of the scroll, right? But this just says, hey, this is where we left off the last time. Here's where we are now, about 20 minutes after we left off. I mean, you saw in the scene where Rey walks up to Luke. I mean, it was the scene of her handing him the lightsaber, the ending scene of that last movie. There was no time that passed over on that planet, Acto, which we'll get to. But yeah, in terms of the actual resistance and the fight, I mean, yeah, very little time has passed. What I like about the intro to this movie, and we'll get started just kind of walking through it, starts out with something that I felt was missing from the last movie, which was, why is Poe Dameron such a badass, right?
Yeah.
Like that was something that was missing from the last movie, because there was all this talk about, Poe's this great resistance fighter, and you saw him do some fighting in the last movie, and you're like, oh, this is okay. But I mean, this was Poe just ripping through one of the First Order ships and showing why he's this amazing rebel pilot. I mean, what'd you think of that scene?
It was everything I wanted Poe Dameron to be and more. Like it was everything great about the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy's starfighter battles, with a little bit extra, with that sort of jolt of showing that there's new technology being developed. And I think that was a theme across the entire film, was that as we've seen over the prior 7 movies, a lot has developed technologically speaking. And, that people make the argument that the prequels seem more technologically advanced than the original trilogy, but I think we can chalk that up to just production quality of the time.
That's inevitable. Yes.
But what I really liked was that Poe had that, what was that, second stage ignition on the back of his X-Wing. I thought that was a really cool addition. I thought that and his just ability to maneuver the X-Wing a lot better than any X-Wing pilot had before was also really indicative of there being something different. That I guess also goes into one of the things that irked me the most about the film, was its portrayal of the physics in space. I think was my biggest pet peeve about the entire thing. But I'm going into a movie that hyperdrive exists and lightsabers are real. Like, there's a little suspension of disbelief.
And people are standing with the ship blown open, like watching watching other ships take
people
off
standing in space without it being in one of those. I can never remember the name, but the circular wheel thing.
Suspending disbelief. That's fine. But yeah, one of the things I liked about that scene with Poe though was the fact that they like explained it so it didn't seem too incredulous. Oh, he's so close to the ship that like none of our major weapons can hit him. That was like the excuse that they used, that the X-Wing was just so close, and he was flying so low that they actually had to send out a fleet of TIE fighters in order to actually try to strike him.
Well, and the turrets try to shoot at him. And it does show that like they're so ineffective that they have to scramble the fighters 5 bloody minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that Admiral was a cool enough character. I kind of wish we had like maybe another introduction, or if like Rebels gets a season that takes place between episode 6 and episode 7, that we get to maybe be introduced to that character and just see him get blown away cool. Within the first 15 minutes of the film.
That would be pretty cool. So now we get to the Resistance then jumping into hyperspace to escape after this sort of counterattack by Poe Dameron. So at this point, one, Leia is not pleased by Poe's counterattack, and two, we actually see that they are tracked by the First Order. That there is some new technology.
Going back apparently to the evolution of technology right there.
Yeah. Apparently the First Order has been doing some R&D and now has a tracking device that can actually track people through hyperspace.
Well, I mean, like, they're investing trillions of credits into developing this new military. They might as well put a little bit of money into R&D.
Yeah, clearly no tax cuts there. But this is right after the First Order brings in a dreadnought to destroy the Resistance base, which is what forces them to actually evacuate. And the dreadnought, have we seen this ship before? We haven't seen this ship before, right?
No, we have not. And actually, I was watching the gameplay from the DLC that came out for Battlefront 2 in conjunction with The Last Jedi. I know people have very strong opinions on Battlefront 2, but it's a great game. I will live by that. And there's a DLC, one of the free DLCs that came out came out 2 days before The Last Jedi did. And there's a part in the end of the game. So this is going to be spoilers for Battlefront 2 Resurrection campaign as well. But there's a part at the end where the main characters are able to break into a First Order Star Destroyer, and we're able to crack the code for their like library. Basically what Jyn Erso did on Scarif, was able to crack into the library and was able to like look through and find what would be most useful to the Resistance. And one of the things that they find is they find the schematics for a dreadnought, which has never been seen in Star Wars before. They've always been cruisers or battleships. There's never been a dreadnought class ship, and they send the schematics to it to Commander Dameron for analysis, which is where we get at the beginning of Last Jedi, with the whole scene with the bombers and everything. So like Battlefront 2 kind of ties it all together. And so dreadnoughts are this new thing in the universe that are so super scary. They're ship killers, they're colony killers, I think they say in Battlefront 2. Like there's a lot to be afraid of with a dreadnought. And I mean they're pretty freaking big, as you could tell in the film.
So the Resistance fighters bomb that, and then when they're making their escape to hyperspace, they are followed by Kylo Ren, Leia's son, and Leia and Han Solo's son from the last movie, who destroys the Resistance support fighters. but hesitates to fire at the lead resistance ship after sensing his mother's presence, which is the first sign that we get that Kylo Ren is conflicted. You had some signs of that in the in The Force Awakens, but you thought that that basically he had gotten past that by killing his father Han Solo. But you see him hesitate. But right after you see him hesitate, you have a holy moment.
I thought this was the moment. I thought this was it.
No, I wasn't convinced. I would have been very upset had they killed her here. But like, I didn't think they were going to do what they did, which was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe jumping
it's the
back.
First true. Yeah.
Like jumping back like 5 minutes, or geez, probably like 2 minutes in the movie, that you see the when they get out of hyperspace, and this is right after Poe got demoted, and he runs up to Leia and like reiterates the same thing he said and was like, can I jump in an X-Wing and blow some stuff up? Permission granted. Like, that was one of the coolest things. And one of the things I keep thinking about is that there's a lot of callbacks in this movie where you see sort of the foil for one of the characters or their counterpart, or like how we're seeing like Poe is the new Leia Organa, and Finn is the new Han Solo, and Rey is the new Luke. You're seeing these counterparts kind of playing off of each other, and then the foils.
I think you're going to start seeing that fall apart slowly, and we'll get to that. But I think it's starting to fall apart slowly throughout, which is what I want to happen. I don't want this movie to be the original trilogy. As much as I love the original trilogy, I don't want this movie or this series of movies to be the original trilogy, and we see them shift away from that.
Yeah.
And while they do spend time paying homage to not just the actual movies themselves, but the actual storylines within those movies, you see them shift away from that. And that's what I really enjoy. You still see the shades of it at the beginning of the movie, but to me, by the end of the movie, you definitely see entirely new characters with an entirely new story.
Yeah.
Which is what I really enjoy about it.
So what I really liked is that, Force Awakens was a rehash of New Hope. And people complained a lot about that, because it was, we're not getting a new story. It's not very different. But I think, that's such a tried and true story. Nobody farm boy picks up Excalibur and, takes on the dragon, or takes on, Darth Vader or the Death Star. What are all those tropes that we see in New Hope are reiterated in Force Awakens, and then Last Jedi.
In my opinion, you had to do that to reboot the franchise.
Exactly.
In order to restart the franchise, you had to do that. You had to come up with something that was basically the same thing but updated for the modern age. And now is the movie The Last Jedi, where you can split off and actually start making this thing its own story.
Yeah. I'll note that there were enough similarities between Last Jedi and both Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi that in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, The Force Awakens was A New Hope. Last Jedi is Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, because you get the return of the Jedi at the end of episode 8, literally. You
literally do. Yes, and that there's that scene, and we'll get to it. Let's not hop too far ahead, but we'll get to it. That scene where Luke starts to walk out of the cave, I was like, that's the Return of the Jedi. There it is. Like that was him walking in to meet Jabba. That was it.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, and we can get back to the actual story in a minute. But that like we are seeing Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi already reiterated, in a sense, already paid homage to in episode 8, so that now episode 9 has so much more so much empty space ahead of it that it can fill that space with whatever it wants, whatever stories it wants to tell. And I wouldn't be surprised if we got another 2.5-hour film out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I'm excited to see where it goes.
Moving forward with the story, though. So after Kylo Ren hesitates, you get this amazing scene with a show of Leia using the Force in a way we've never ever seen before. I mean, we've never really seen her use the Force at all in the movies, and here, basically what happens is the TIE fighters destroy the bridge of the ship after following her into hyperspace and Kylo Ren hesitating. They kill several resistance leaders, and then Leia gets blown out into space, and it appears that she's dead. However, right afterwards, you see a scene of her her body floating out in space, her slowly waking up, her reaching out her hand, and then floating back towards the ship like a badass.
Yeah, it was and so cool to see, like, just seeing that, like, the first time. You're never gonna get that feeling again. Also, that I think what this movie does, keep in mind,
we're in the first 20 minutes. We're in the first 20 minutes of the movie. Like, that is when that happens.
And
okay, like, that's.
I think what this movie does really well is with the soundtrack, where again, it pays homage. It uses the same motifs for all of the characters. So, Twin Sunset plays at the end for Luke, but for Leia, her theme plays, and it's just a solo piano building into the full orchestral rendition as she, force pulls her way back to the cruiser. And I think it was just such a great usage of dynamic movement in the film score to underscore how powerful of a moment that is for the franchise, for the mystique around the Force, and for the Resistance, the hope that individual moment gave them to just keep pulling through and fight the First Order.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely amazing. And I did not see that scene coming. So afterwards, Leia is incapacitated. And she has left Vice Admiral Holdo in command, which Poe is not very pleased about that.
Like I said, she's his foil.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where we get afterwards they realize that the First Order is still firing on them. They only have so much fuel left to maintain their shields, and that's when after they disapprove of Holdo's sort of passive strategy, Poe, Finn, BB-8, and this new character Rose Tico, embark on a secret plan to disable the actual tracking device. Because if the ship attempts to jump to hyperspace again, they will be out of fuel and they will get followed by the First Order again. So
and then be out of fuel because they only have one jump. And I love that they mentioned that early enough in the film that, like, you kind of forget about it by the end, but that they only have fuel for one jump, and also confirms that hyperdrive fuel is different from sublight fuel. So that was an interesting, you got a bit of that technical side of it as well.
Yeah, you're talking about bending the universe fuel versus kinetic motion fuel. Those say two different things. Right? Yeah. So then we flip over to Rey, and the last scene of Force Awakens, where she's on the planet Ahch-To. She has just found Luke Skywalker, and you have the epic moment from the end of The Force Awakens. Remember that feeling you had when she handed him the lightsaber, and you just knew he was gonna take it and throw it off a cliff. So yeah, basically Luke grabs it and wants nothing to do with it, which is something that I kind of predicted at first. I thought that at first Luke would be a bit resistant. I didn't think he'd throw his lightsaber off a cliff, but I did think he would definitely be resistant to actually teaching Rey, and that there would be some dialogue about that. I was concerned that they would spend too long dragging that out throughout the movie, but they didn't. I think there was there was enough, there was just the right amount of resistance to it, given everything that he'd been through with Kylo Ren, and given sort of how he was underwhelmed, or maybe that's not the appropriate word, but just put off at this point with the notion of teaching new Jedi and having this new Jedi order. I figured that would exist. But I love what actually brought him back. And this is another thing that goes to paying homage to the old storyline, is the initial message from Leia.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Coming from R2-D2. He sat in the Millennium Falcon, R2-D2 boots up, and it plays the hologram from Leia from A New Hope, where she's asking for help. The thing that started their adventure off.
That was one of my favorite moments, both like emotionally and comedically, when Luke and R2 have that conversation, and R2's like beeping like crazy, and watch the language, sacred island. Like, that was one of the funnier lines of the whole thing. And then just the how Luke assumes that he can't convey the emotional meaning of what he's doing there on the island to a droid, and the droid to then respond with such an emotional reaction shows that like there's like really a bond there between man and machine.
Yeah.
And then, he convinces Luke, and he says 3 lessons, which is, so do we want to go through, because he only covers 2 of them. So apparently there was going to be a third one, but they cut it from the film because it would just made it too long and would have kind of dragged out the scenes.
No, I don't. I think it was on purpose that she didn't, quote, finish her training. I thought that was on purpose.
I think that was in part not retconning, but we're supposed to take that from there, but they did film a third lesson, which is where those promo images of Rey running at night along the beach. Those were apparently going to be used in the movie for the third lesson, which was it was on one of the Star Wars fan pages was posting about it.
They explicitly said that was going to be the third lesson for jogging.
Well, the third cardio is the third lesson.
Cardio.
This is why the Jedi Order, should cease to exist, is because they all sat in chairs for the entire prequel trilogy.
Right, exactly.
No, actually,
because Luke had just been standing on a cliff as opposed to getting his cardio up. That's really why he's not training.
Well, no, the third lesson had something to do with things happen, and like you have to do things for good, not because, I don't know. Read the article. It was on, I think, on Last Jedi fan page or something.
I'm more interested in what they actually claim is canon. Because I would love it if, because what is in the movie is what is canon, right? Yes. And I would love it if there is this third lesson that's out there that comes into play in that third movie. Something she had not learned yet.
Yeah, I like that idea
to help
too.
The plot of the next movie. Yeah,
and there's precedent that deleted scenes are not canon, because a deleted scene from Episode 1 included Bail Organa talking about something involving the Trade Federation, and Bail Organa was played by a different person, and Alderaan had a completely different political stance in the Galactic Senate, and there is precedent that the deleted scenes or shortened scenes do not have are not.
Well, canon. I think that's a given in most sci-fi movies, because there's plenty of deleted scenes in Marvel movies, right? That look, they are deleted, therefore they are not canon. What you see in the film and the post-credit scenes, which obviously there are no post-credit scenes to Star Wars, there never has been.
Well, people stick around in my theater for the first.
People started
time.
sticking around too. I was like, guys, you're way too used to Marvel movies. I know this is still owned by Disney, but
now I like that
it's not happening.
I stuck around till after the actors were all put out, because it said, to our, in loving memory of our princess.
I waited for that. I waited for that. Yeah, me too. Okay, but let's keep moving along. So while this is all happening and Luke is initially refusing even after learning about Han Solo's death,
where's
unbeknownst to Luke. Yeah, right. Yeah, there was that line. Everyone in the audience just shuddered, right? But unbeknownst to Luke, Rey and Kylo begin communicating with each other through telepathic visions, which is pretty incredible. This is not something that we've really seen before in the Force in terms of the movie canon. But it was also very telling that Rey could see everything around him but he could only see her. And this becomes a key sort of plot in the movie, because I mean, he would love to know where Luke is. Obviously, that was a big part of the last movie. But yeah, he starts communicating with her, and that sort of begins this dialogue and them sort of having a relationship in this movie, which is something that the original trilogy, I have to say, kind of lacked. Right? It gives more meaning to them opposing each other if there was this previous dialogue, and
as opposed
her
to being,
trying to bring him to the light.
Yeah, as opposed to it being like, backwards farm girl or desert planet girl, faces off against highly trained Sith Lord.
Yeah,
not Sith,
exactly.
But
exactly.
So two things.
I will always get. A lot of people gave her crap for that lightsaber fight at the end of that last movie, but you see, she knows how to fight. She knew how to fight. She doesn't Jedi level know how to fight, but she knows how to fight in general. And given that she was fighting an injured Jedi, I give it a pass.
Yeah, I mean, he was necessarily gravely injured.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I still give that a pass.
Yeah. So two things I want to touch on is that there's, I know we just said that deleted scenes are not canon, but if you look at the original opening to Return of the Jedi, where Luke is building his lightsaber, I'm not sure if they actually filmed it or if it was just storyboard, but part of what would happen during that scene would be Darth Vader calling out to him. So it's already been mentioned in that, and then also in a few of the comic books, that even across the expanse of the universe, of the galaxy at least, that two Force-sensitive beings can communicate to the level that we saw in Last Jedi.
Comics, yes.
The level that we saw in Last Jedi has not been seen before, of them being able to see each other. And I think that just goes into show how powerful Snoke was. Rip in peace, Snoke.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to mention was that you saw this, you're right, that like there was this connection already there, and that Luke, I guess, had cut himself off from the Force, so he wasn't aware of all the stuff that was going on. And I think that is indicative of like when he said, where's Han? Like that was to show that he's not connected to the Force.
Also,
yeah,
he would have known that because of Leia, how Leia felt when that happened.
Yeah,
because Leia felt it because she's still connected. But yeah, that's what it was. Also, that's also when it was very clear, and why it wasn't that surprising later on when he said, "Oh, I cut myself off from the Force." Like you knew that already.
The side note. When they had the scene where it was raining out and Rey was under the Millennium Falcon and was talking to Kylo and called him a monster, and he said, "Yes, I am a monster." That scene, when Kylo had like the water on him, I immediately thought like, "Oh boy, like he's gonna figure out where she is." And then I thought, in a galaxy of tens of thousands of hundreds. I don't know how many stars are in that galaxy. Millions of stars in that galaxy. Now,
probably billions.
Stars.
Let's go with billions.
Millions and millions of planets. He's going to figure out on which ones it was raining at that exact moment. So I was like, oh, okay, never mind. It's not going to be. He's not going to find out with that one.
but yeah. So anyway, this is sort of the beginning of this storyline where Luke and Kylo are giving Rey different accounts of the incident that turned Kylo to the dark side, and eventually led to Luke confessing that he walked in to Kylo's tent and momentarily contemplated killing Kylo after sensing that Supreme Leader Snoke had corrupted him. He was going to make a preemptive strike, which, I mean, in hindsight,
probably would have been good, but premeditated murder is not looked upon kindly by the Force.
Probably. I mean, you're stopping threats before they happen, all right?
Han would still be alive today.
he needs like a pep talk from Captain America. Anytime someone tries to prevent a war before it happens, people get hurt. All right, this is an example of that. So we find out we find out over time that is what Luke did over this trading on Ahch-To. Rey, though, after all of this training, is convinced that Kylo can still be redeemed, and then eventually leaves Ahch-To to confront Kylo without Luke. And during this time, and we'll just stick to what's happening on Ahch-To for right now, Luke prepares to actually burn down the Ahch-To Jedi Temple and Library, but he encounters Yoda. Or Yoda's Force Ghost.
That was the thing. That was the one thing that was spoiled for me before going into the movie. Was
I'm so glad that was not spoiled for me because I almost got out of my chair when I saw Yoda.
I still did that, but it was spoiled for me that Yoda was going to appear. Though I had heard that Frank Oz had like done voice work or something, and like they saw him leaving
that's
like the Pine Studios in London.
Yeah, all of these movies, as soon as I see any announcement, other than a trailer, unless I see an announcement that says a trailer, I avoid all news. Because Google always tries to tell me about this stuff too. Like I have like Google cards and things like this, but I avoid all of it. And I had especially a lot of trouble this week because, it was 6 days in, I still hadn't seen the movie. So I'm glad I didn't get that. But yeah, it was really cool seeing Yoda and Luke, these two masters now, sitting together, and Yoda still teaching him lessons.
We are what they grow beyond was my favorite line of that whole. That whole interaction with Yoda was great, but that one line really well done. Really got me.
But yeah, so we saw Luke attempting to destroy the temple, hesitating to do it, Yoda appearing, and then just blasting it with lightning. Which was amazing.
Down B Pikachu lightning bolting the tree.
Right. Exactly. So he destroys it and encourages Luke to learn from his failure, which is the overall lesson for Luke in this movie.
Well, and for Rey to learn from his failure. And I think that's like, you see that with Leia instructing Poe. You see that, we saw that with Han instructing Finn, that there's this recurring theme of the older generation not just passing off the physical Excalibur, passing off the lightsaber to Rey, but the mental Excalibur, the ability to command, to lead, to become greater than what your masters were.
All right. So this is where we start to enter the next act of the movie, where basically Holdo reveals her plan to discreetly evacuate the remaining Resistance members using small transport. So this is while Rey is on her way over to where they are, actually. And needless to say, Poe is not pleased to the point where he attempted a mutiny.
Unshielded.
Yes. These are unarmed, unshielded. They were going to fly off to this planet where there was a small hidden rebel base that had some protection to it. But Poe, right. Poe instigated a mutiny. And he was temporarily successful until Leia came back
and kicked his ass.
Rightfully so.
Just
like there was no question.
With a stun gun.
Like even though you kind of knew Poe was right, you didn't question it when Leia blasted him with the stun gun. You were like, no, I am I'm the general of this ship. I'm not gonna have you instigate a mutiny. I put this person in charge.
And so that goes back, I think, to what we were talking about with Luke and Yoda, that we are what they grow beyond. That I would have absolutely seen young Leia, if a similar scene had happened in Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back, that Leia would have been leading the charge in the mutiny and trying to get them, to turn the ship around and do all that, and then get, blasted down by their superior. And you see this as sort of a recurring theme of the older generation passing on the lessons of their failures. and the failures themselves for the newer generation to take advantage of and to learn from and to become stronger than their masters. I think, it just keeps coming back to this.
Absolutely. And then now we move, so now we move on to sort of the other side plot, that really, and we call it a side plot, but this is something that also helps, Finn really develop as a character here. This is the part where Finn, Rose, and BB-8 recruit the Slicer DJ at a casino on Canto Bight, believing that he'll help them, or that he'll be able to help them actually disable the tracking device. They infiltrate the Supremacy, but are captured by Captain Phasma, though BB-8 manages to escape. Meanwhile, Rey delivers herself directly to the Supremacy in order to meet Ren, but she's immediately placed in binder cuffs, and he takes her to Snoke. And this is where we get that really cool scene with a decision needing to be made. And the thing with this one, it was very obvious for you, right? Like what was going to happen in terms of the decision that was going to need to be made.
I knew it was going to be made. I knew it was going to be made. Everything was pointing in the direction. I just was like, this is one of the scenes where I was like, if Disney wanted to play it safe, they'd freeze Rey and carbonite, and that be the theme of Episode 9 is freeing Rey.
Right.
But they did it. They actually killed off this Emperor type character in the second movie. Yeah. Because of and I think this is, again, a callback to what Luke was saying about what happened in the prequels. There's an article that we're linking in the show notes talking about how The Last Jedi redeems the prequels and kind of paints it in a different light. I really resonated with this article. But anyway, there's so you have Snoke, who's full of hubris, who's not aware of his surroundings, not aware of the problem right in front of his nose, as Yoda says. That is his ultimate downfall. That is what brings him down, and it's his student Kylo Ren, which I know that goes back into the legend of the Sith, how there's only two of them, and the apprentice overtakes the master to become the master, who then takes on an apprentice. But
they're doing away with all of it, which is great. That was my favorite part about all of this.
Tell Rey that he should join her.
So yeah, one of the interesting things that was interesting about this was it was predictable, but at the point where I predicted that all of those that chain of events was going to happen, that Snoke was going to make Kylo make a decision about killing her, and that Kylo was going to decide to kill Snoke and try to take her on as the apprentice. That's where I really started getting excited about sort of the future of the remainder of this movie and the rest of the story that they're trying to tell, because that's where I noted that this is going to be a different story than the original trilogy, because it's not going to be there's this emperor like big bad, and Kylo Ren is just going to be the evil slave to this guy until he decides to make a good decision at the end. No, it's a story about a villain struggling to become that evil big bad, which is
and you see it
much more compelling.
Yeah, and you see it as that callback to with the everything around him burning, with having just defeated his main enemy, or his true enemy, as Snoke said about himself, I guess. Mm-hmm. That you see Kylo attempting to emulate Anakin in both how he tried to persuade Padme to join him in his new empire, and in how he tried to persuade Luke to the same effect. Yeah. And you see him fail, just like Anakin did in both of those instances. So you see that he has the blood of Skywalker in him. But it's all based on this legend that he believes about Vader and about Anakin, that you have to be wearing a mask and wear all black and have a badass red lightsaber to truly become a Skywalker. When you see Rey act more like Luke, act more like the chosen one, a Skywalker, than anyone in the Skywalker bloodline in this film.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I thought this whole interaction, everything that happened, on that ship between those three characters, was really well done. It was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. It was one of the most predictable, but it was also one of my favorites just because it was very well executed.
I think it's my second favorite part of the film. Not only because of the awesome lightsaber fight against the Praetorian guards, but also because it was just such a good scene in like its direction, in the chances that it took, and that basically within the same 10-minute segment, all of the fan theories about Snoke and Rey and all the hoopla about everything that happened in The Force Awakens gets thrown out the window. That's when I knew that this was going to be a different trilogy than the prequels or the original trilogy.
Yeah. It's funny because there were so many theories about Snoke and who is Snoke and he's going to be the big bad. And in this movie, it's like, who cares? Yeah.
Cut into three
Who cares
pieces
anymore who Snoke is? I mean, I'm sure there will still be lore and stuff like that about who Snoke originally was, but it doesn't matter to this story. Yeah. All you need to know is that he was a Sith Lord. He was trying to have a Sith apprentice, and that order is broken now, just as the Jedi Order is broken. Which is, I mean, it was great.
Also, there's the legend behind Snoke that gets completely disbanded. Right? Like, and that's another theme in this film, is that you cannot trust legends.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, none of it matters anymore. So going back to the other ship, a recovered Leia stuns Poe. That's where we left off, and that allowed the evacuation to begin. Holdo remains on the ship to mislead Snoke's fleet, as all others attempt to flee to a nearby old Rebel alliance base on Crate. However, DJ reveals the Resistance plan to the First Order, and the evacuation transports are then targeted, and they start blowing up a lot of rebels. Holdo sacrifices herself by ramming Snoke's fleet at light speed to stop the barrage. In amidst all the chaos, Rey escapes, while Kylo declares himself the new supreme leader. And
Hux tries to kill Kylo. Like, while Kylo's incapacitated, almost pulls out the pistol and then puts it back away when Kylo wakes up. But smart choice. You kind of reminded me. I kind of forgot about that scene where she goes into hyperspace and blasts through the Supremacy and through a bunch of the Star Destroyers. And like we heard talk in Episode 4, where Han says, we have to get our calculations right. Otherwise, you don't want to, jump out in the center of a star or an exploding, planet or something. Yeah. And you get that sense that that's something that can happen in the universe, but you never see it. But this,
it's not hyper. So keep in mind, she didn't go in hyperspace. She didn't go to hyperspace. She went to light speed.
Well, no, because remember, we've had this conversation before in the car ride down to Nashville, that you get to the hyperspace lanes by getting to light speed.
Right, but
she was like entering.
She wasn't in hyperspeed. Yeah, she was entering hyperspace, but she wasn't in hyperspace. She was in normal space, but at light speed. That's what she did, because if she was in hyperspace, she would have bent the universe and she would have gone past those ships. Right?
Yeah. So she was. Whereas the ships were as if they were a stack of Lego blocks on the on ramp to the highway, and she was a 18-wheeler semi barreling through.
Yeah, exactly.
And just
she tore through that looked beautiful, by the way,
and like without the sound. The sound dropped out. And again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the music, that like this movie does so well with the dynamics of the score and the sound was so beautiful in this entire film. And you know what? I'm going to reorganize my list. I'm going to say that the Rey Kylo battle is going to be my third favorite. Second favorite is when Luke steps out on Crate. First favorite is the hyper or the light speed ram. It just my favorite scene in the film by far.
So one of the other big things that happened that we didn't mention in this is BB-8 frees Finn and Rose, who escape after defeating Captain Phasma, and joins the survivors of the evacuation on Crate. So you had that Finn fight with Captain Phasma. You had kind of somewhat of an anticlimactic end for that. I thought that would have stretched out a little bit more.
I'm glad that it didn't, because it was already a 2.5 hour film, and this was happening at the 2 hour mark. But
I bet there are some.
I just want to also say that Rose, I think, is my new favorite. It was my favorite new character, with the second place being Benicio del Toro's DJ.
Yeah.
By new character, I don't mean like between like Rey, Finn, and Poe, but like of this film specifically, Rose was my favorite just because of the line that she says when they're on Canto Bight, where she says, I want to put my fist through this whole lousy, beautiful town. And that just really resonated with me.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
And like, it just, the theme and the tone of everything in this movie fit where we are culturally, where we are in 2017. Sure. But anyway, back to the actual movie.
back to the actual movie. So we get one of the interesting things about this was we know that Rey has escaped. It's just briefly mentioned by I always forget his name, so I just call him Ron Weasley from the Harry Potter films, because that's who he is. Hux, yes. It was briefly mentioned by Hux that Rey escaped. But we, the audience, have no idea where she is. She's just escaped. She's in some abstract space. So we move on with the plot, and when the First Order arrives on Crate, Poe, Finn, and Rose lead a charge with a set of old speedsters with these sort of uniskis, which were a really cool vehicle.
Yeah. Something that
they're starting to get.
Something that I want to make note of here is that in this movie, I don't think I've been more stressed out watching battle scenes or like with the transports fleeing to the planet surface. I don't think I've been more stressed out in a Star Wars movie than those scenes, because I literally sat there for when they were on the monoskis, the little speeder things. I sat there counting the number of them, because they said, there's only 13 of them.
13, yeah.
And I just counted every time that one of them got blown up. Like, I was legit.
You know why you're
like stressed out when all of those scenes were happening.
You know why you were stressed?
Because the Resistance was at stake.
What was the last Star Wars movie that you saw?
It was Rogue One.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you were stressed out.
Yeah. I thought it could go a lot of ways.
And you know in your head they're probably not going to murder everyone like they did in Rogue One, but that was the last new Star Wars that we saw. So it's somewhere in the back of our minds.
I thought Finn was going to sacrifice himself to get back to the plot.
I thought that was coming, and I was like, John Boyega's not going to be in the third one. Yeah. What is happening?
And that's the thing is, like, in those like that minute that he was going towards the battering ram cannon, the miniaturized Death Star tech, I was like,
yeah,
I kind of was okay with it. I was like, you know what? Like, I love Finn's character, but like, if that's how he goes, I could get behind that.
That's that's
I could really feel that. I could really feel that.
But going back to this, and we skipped over this. I mean, the whole reason they're going after this thing is because Finn realizes, they have this battering ram that can blow a hole in the base that they're hiding. So they come out on these old speeders in order to do this. They get attacked by Kylo Ren and his forces, but here she comes to save the day. Our amazing Jedi, not Jedi, Rey, comes and draws the TIE fighters that are shooting that are shooting at these old speedsters, and she draws them away with the Millennium Falcon, while Rose saves Finn from a suicide run against the main enemy cannon, which does eventually blast a hole in the Resistance's fortress. Now the Resistance is trying to figure out, oh crap, what do we do? And then out of nowhere, here comes Luke. And I didn't think that he was Force ghosting it at first. Actually, I didn't really think it for a while. Like, not really until towards the very end of that battle. That was not something that I predicted at all. But yeah, he appears and confronts Kylo alone, so that the surviving Resistance fighters can escape, which was I thought was really cool.
In that scene, when he walks in and talks to Leia, and they have that banter back and forth, and gives her the die, and also the line where he says, no one has ever really gone, hit me really hard, because he's telling that to Carrie Fisher, who passed away a year ago now, and I mean, it was just like that whole conversation that happened was awesome. And then he winks at 3PO. What?
You know what I'm wondering? I'm wondering how many of the scenes during reshoots, how many of those scenes were done with Leia, so that the actors could have their final goodbyes. Like that scene where Holdo says, "May the Force always be with you." That seemed like something that was shot after Carrie Fisher passed away.
I think you're right. I think there's a number of scenes where that happened, and I remember
hearing that and going, "There's that she totally did that after Carrie Fisher," and I totally get it.
Yeah,
like there was just a number of these goodbye scenes.
It adds a level of emotional connection to that scene. And that those actors then were able to convey, because they lost a friend. They were able to act those scenes out so much better. But I just thought that when Luke first showed up and removed his hood and had the new haircut, or I guess old haircut, I knew something was off. And then when he walks out there and then has the lightsaber,
I had no idea what it was. Yeah,
and that had the lightsaber that just broken in half. I was like, man, Luke is really he's he can rebuild a lightsaber and go to the salon at the same time.
Right. He's that's the other power. That's the other secret behind being a Jedi. You're a multitasker.
you can do all these things at once.
So you get this scene where, all right, as soon as Luke comes out and confronts them, Return of the Jedi style, which is really freaking cool, Kylo orders the First Order to just fire on Luke, just send everything at him. And even here, I'm not thinking this is a Force Ghost Luke. I'm thinking this is OP Luke, right? Yeah. This is overpowered. This guy knows the ins and outs of the Force. He's going to take all of it, a scene from Dragon Ball Z, and just kind of wipe it off of his mouth. Right?
He's gonna tank the damage and just keep going. And when that happened,
wipe the sweat off his brow.
When Kylo said, "I want every gun we have to fire on that man," it just was I think Adam Driver deserves a Golden Globe for the performance he has.
Adam Driver is amazing.
Yeah,
Adam Driver is an amazing actor. This guy I can't describe. When I first heard of it, I said, you know what, dead on. That is because I knew a little bit about his background and his background as an actor, and I knew he was going to nail this role, and he crushed it in this movie.
Yeah,
that conflicted, not completely evil, but still evil, bad guy,
but gets so frustrated when he can't be Darth Vader.
Right.
When he just screams at Luke, "I'm sure you are."
Yeah.
You know, when Luke says, "I'm sorry for failing you." It's just Adam Driver's so good. Applause to him.
I know he does a great job of playing like he does a great job of playing like the alt empire, right? He really wants to be in the empire, but but he can't. So Kylo then confronts him. He goes down and engages in battle with Luke himself, and then he strikes Luke with his lightsaber during this battle, only to realize that he's actually been fighting Luke's force projection this entire time. And Luke has the best line after he strikes him down. I mean, he basically defiantly tells Kylo that he will not be the last Jedi.
Yeah.
And this is all happening while Rey is using the Force to help the remaining Resistance fighters escape via the Millennium Falcon, which tells you how very few Resistance fighters are left, by the way.
Yeah, well, again, because going back to my, Falcon. I kept counting the number of times that, people got shot, or number of times that a speeder blew up or a transport blew up. But the line that Luke had, that, again, just throughout the entire movie, you have characters say a line, and then at the end of the movie, in their redemption or in their returning moment, they repeat that line but alter it a little bit. And the incredible, every word you said in that sentence was wrong. Even still thinking about that scene, I kind of swell up a little bit. It's just it was so good. And then they have the quote unquote duel, and Luke does the slow-mo Keanu Reeves around the lightsaber blade, and Kylo realizes he's fighting a force projection, and he just goes, "See you around, kid." It's just that whole again, that is my second favorite scene in the entire film, but barely second place to the Lightspeed scene.
And here's where the film had a little bit of a back and forth, because you weren't quite sure if, when they first flashed Luke and he was incapacitated, I was like, oh, they're gonna kill him. But then he kind of got back up on the rock, and then I said to myself, oh, they're just gonna keep him alive, and he's gonna eventually die a peaceful death on Octo, and then he actually finally died. and I said, I guess they're showing it on
when
screen.
He's sitting on the rock and Twin Suns starts to play, and then you see the reflection in the refraction, I guess, in the haze of the planet's atmosphere. You see a second sun appear, and it's just it's an illusional, but it calls back to A New Hope, and to even to parts of the prequel trilogy, of just that just emotional tether that it has, and pulls on your heartstrings throughout the entire film. That it just was such an emotional ride, seeing Luke come back, return of the Jedi for the last time, and take on the First Order, and let the Resistance escape and live to fight another day. But in the end, be at peace with what he's done and bring balance to what he could, so that he can appear in Episode 9 as a Force ghost after he's made up with Obi-Wan. Because I want to also note this, that in lesson number 2, when he's talking to Rey about Darth Sidious, that he mentions that it was a Jedi who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader. So very clearly, Luke is not very pleased with Obi-Wan Kenobi right now, so that maybe there's a reason why that he didn't appear as a Force ghost. Luke was ignoring his calls or something. So I'm looking forward to Episode 9 for there to be a Return of the Jedi scene at the end, where you have Luke standing there with Yoda and Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yeah.
And just you see the whole... Yeah. And maybe Adam Driver, we'll see. Who knows?
No, I think at this point, I don't want to see Adam Driver redeemed. I think Episode 9 should open up with him doing something horrific, and it is an all-out good versus evil battle at this point. I think this was the movie about conflict, and trying to turn someone good versus trying to turn someone bad. But I think the next movie needs to be about Rey, because we already talked about a rebellion swelling up. And I mean, we can kind of walk through the last part of the movie, which is Leia reassuring everyone that the rebellion has all that it needs to rise again, even though they suffered all of these losses. And you see that losses, and you see on Canto Bight that one of the children that helped Finn and Rose escape grabs a broom with the Force and gazes hopefully up into space, right?
That was such a good scene.
That was the perfect way to end this movie, and the perfect way to introduce the next movie, because the next movie has to be you have a rebellion that is starting, you have the resistance that is that is gaining newer members, you have the First Order growing strong under Kylo Ren, and it is just an all-out good versus evil battle, and something has to happen definitively for the resistance to take hold of a new Senate, I guess, or a new, you don't want to call it an empire anymore, but
a new republic.
They need to finally take control. A new republic. Yeah, well, that's what needs to spin up again.
So there's something that you said, that the second, Last Jedi was all about the conflict that, they're trying to turn someone to good, just like at the end of Return of the Jedi, where Luke turns his father good, that we're now seeing, like I'm saying, episode 8 is the covers sort of the emotional storyline ground of episode 5 and episode 6. So that's where that empty space is that you have this conflict with no resolution right now, that there's still this massive war going on, and that the resistance needs to grow its numbers, and the First Order needs to come back from its massive losses, and that you need to that there needs to be this resolution. And I think you're right, that I think Kylo there's no redeeming him. I think he is going to be the best bad guy of the entire Star Wars series, Darth Vader and all, because of what he does in those opening minutes of episode 9. And I think that I think what the end scene with the kid looking up into space and using the Force shows is that that the oppressed, going back to what Vice Admiral Holdo said when she was first instated after Leia was incapacitated, that the downtrodden and oppressed across the galaxy are reaching up, and that the resistance is what's going to bring about a good change to the galaxy. But then another thing I read was that the people on Canto Bight, those the bankers, the war mongers, are, and I love this the political tone of the dialogue around this, that there are these people that don't care if it's the Empire or the New Republic or the New Republic or the Old Republic or the New Galactic Empire, First Order. They don't care. They're going to make a buck off of any of it. They're going to build the X-Wings and the TIE fighters and the F-16s. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. But they're always going to be there to make money off of war. So I want to see in what direction they go to create this empire that isn't, or republic or whatever it becomes, that isn't tethered to this military industrial complex that just perpetuates the war that costs so many billions of lives across all of these planets and all these new ways of destroying the enemy. Whether you're on the Empire's, on the dark side or the light side, you have an enemy that you are so eager to destroy that something needs to put an end to it. And the fuel on the flame needs to dissipate.
Yeah, whatever it is going to be a much more compelling story than just beating a Sith Lord, right? Because that's kind of how we worked on the last two trilogies, right? Can you beat the Sith Lord or can't you, right? And this is more than that. This is, how do you establish something that's longer lasting? We're done with the Jedi. The overall theme of this movie, once again, and we talked about this back when the trailer came out. I specifically remember saying this, is that when Luke said it's time for the Jedi to end, it was telling that Rey, while she is on the light side of the Force, is not a Jedi. She is something else entirely.
Yeah.
Right. And the focus is. And the focus is to say that we're not going to, fit people into this order anymore, and basically repeat the mistakes of the past. Luke explicitly talked about how the Jedi were flawed, and that all of that stuff is just a legend, and that Luke Skywalker is just a legend. And I think Rey is going to take those lessons forward, and not explicitly be this. This so-called legend. She's going to help the resistance, but she's going to do more than just win a battle. She's going to set up something that's longer lasting.
She's more than going to show up with a laser sword and take on the First Order.
Exactly. One thing that's interesting about this movie, a couple of interesting facts that I noted. Apparently, Carrie Fisher actually wrote a lot of the lines and exchanges that happened between her and some of those other characters, particularly that exchange between Leia and Holdo when she gives the most emotional "May the Force be forever with you." That was something that was written between Carrie Fisher and Laura Dern, the person who played Amilyn Holdo. Mm-hmm. So that I thought was incredible. Right now, the box office for the movie worldwide as of 2 days ago, December 20th, was about 573.7 million. I think it's closer to a little over 600 million at this point.
Means they've recouped their
so they're doing
expenses
fairly well. Yeah. It only cost $200 million to make this movie, which is, I guess that shouldn't be that shocking, but I am thinking on the scale of like Marvel movies at this
which
point.
are close to $1 billion each.
Not close to $1 billion. Each of the next Avengers movies are $1 billion each. $1 billion each.
And I know people are gonna ostracize me for it, but I don't know if I like the Marvel movies that much that I'd want $1 billion to be spent on them. If you can do Star Wars for $200 million,
do. anyone that grew up reading Marvel comics certainly does.
All right.
So yeah. And then, I guess last and best of the facts is that we will see the continuance of this episode 9. It is scheduled to release on December 20th. 2019. Principal photography is set to begin in June 2018. Although Colin Trevorrow had initially been attached to direct the film on September 5th, 2017, Lucasfilm announced that Trevorrow had stepped down as the director, and a week later, Lucasfilm announced that J.J. Abrams is going to be returning to direct episode 9 and co-write it with Chris Terrio. Yes, exactly. So I am ecstatic to see J.J. Abrams finish off this trilogy. I think that is an outstanding choice.
Yeah, I do as well.
For this. Overall, quick, because we're running really along here. Quick last minute thought on the film.
I think our last minute thought should be like, what is your ranking of the film in comparison to everything else? Like, what are the movies that come above this film? And I can go first. I can go first, give you some time to think. So for me, it goes Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Last Jedi. Then A New Hope, then
Return of the
Jedi.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And I'm not including Rogue One. I think Rogue One is separate enough a movie.
Rogue One stands alone.
Yeah, I think
Rogue One stands alone.
Yeah, because Rogue One is a Star Wars story, but it's not a Star Wars movie.
And also, as good as Rogue One was, I wouldn't put it above those 3 films as far as films I'd watch again. Mm-hmm. But Rogue One, in terms of a film, is one of the best films that they've ever made, as far as a film goes. Classical filmmaking. I would say I would just flip yours a little bit. I would say Return of the Jedi, this, and then Empire. Yeah.
Really? Okay. I thought I was being I was being ballsy putting the
Nope.
Last Jedi.
I enjoyed this.
Third.
I enjoy this movie much more than Empire. Yes, I did not see Empire when it came out in the early 1980s.
And neither did I.
But I did watch those. But I did watch those movies when I was younger, in order, and yeah. I definitely have an emotional connection to Empire. I understand why it's so good. For this, between the circumstances behind the movie with Carrie Fisher and all of that, and the storytelling as far as where I want Star Wars to go, separating out from its current mythos, getting away from the Skywalkers. This is one of the things that we didn't touch on. Her parents are no one, and that made me so happy.
Yep, I sort of mentioned it, but that like all the fan theories got thrown out in the same like 10-minute series, and then just went on to have some of the best scenes in the film.
I love the fact that her parents are not Skywalkers. They're not some Jedi that we saw in the past. They're just literally no one. They have no attachment to the previous stories. They're just there's a couple of people. Rey is a new character. Rey is a new hero, and she shows that anyone can take up the mantle of hero with proper training and a desire to do good. That is a hero character. Yep. Luke Skywalker had a lineage. They had a destiny. They had fate. The villain has a lineage. He has a destiny. He had fate. Rey takes fate into her own hands. She is one with the Force, and the Force is with her.
As with the rest of the film, a hero can beat any legend or any bloodline if the hero's cause is good enough.
Exactly. And then I thought that the fact that this film spent so much time portraying that. Empire has its reasons for being a great film. Empire did a lot of things that films in the previous to it never did before. For this is doing things that no film in Star Wars history had done before, breaking away from the classical storyline of the Skywalkers, and it being this battle of the Skywalkers, and it being a simple battle of light versus dark, right? It's always a simple battle, light, dark. This person's meant to be dark. This person's meant to be light. Here it's more complex. This is a better film. Return of the Jedi just has a special place in my heart. But I mean, this might be a better film than Return of the Jedi. I mean, I'm sorry. Return of the Jedi is a personal favorite for me. I mean, it's kind of like here's what it's like. Obama is not the greatest president in the United States history. Obama is my favorite president. Return of the Jedi may not be the best Star Wars film as an objective film. It is still my favorite Star Wars film, and then followed up by this.
Yeah. I think our definitive ranking of Star Wars film is going to maybe not change. I mean, it could stay the same, but how we perceive the film is going to change over time. Yeah. It's going to evolve. And this is one of those movies that I think evolves with your thinking, that every time that I've thought of this movie since I've seen it, I think of something new. I'm sure I'm going to listen to this episode when it comes out, and I'm going to think of a million more things that I could have said about how I'm thinking about this film. There's just so much to unpack about the film, and just so many connections and nuances that you can't get on your first time seeing it, or your second time, or third or fourth, or however many times that you end up seeing it. I'm sure I'm going to see this movie in the double digits, just like I saw Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and New Hope. Like, I've seen all Star Wars films at least 10 times each. And this is going to be one of those films that I might do that within a year, depending on when it comes out on DVD. Yeah. But yeah, I guess any last thoughts that you want to get out, or shall we wrap up the episode here?
No, I think we've said it all. Carrie Fisher, for her last Star Wars performance. I thought this was an outstanding movie. to end it with. Granted, and just reminded the audience, I'm 2 hours out from seeing it, and I'm already saying it's my second favorite Star Wars film. So by the time you hear from me again, it might be my first favorite. This is a really great film. Carrie Fisher gave a hell of a performance. Mark Hamill gave a hell of a performance. Adam Driver, who I knew would be an amazing villain, was an amazing villain in this movie. And Daisy Ridley owns and crushes the role as the star of this film. She is the definitive star of this new Star Wars series, and she does an amazing job. She is the center of all of these movies, and going forth, when I think of Star Wars, I'm thinking of Rey, quite frankly. So that's how this movie made me feel. Obviously, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac did a great job. We got very little of Lupita Nyong'o, and Andy Serkis as always did a great job as Snoke. So I was really happy with it. It is one of my it's obviously now in my top 2 Star Wars films. So definitely go and see it.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen the film and you just got the entire thing spoiled for you, you still need to go see the film and experience this. If you have already seen the film, go see it a second time. And if you've already seen it a second time, go see it a third time. It is an amazing film that
box
you will
office numbers.
that you will it will stick with you. You will be thinking about this movie for a very long time. And I think we'll be talking about this until the episode 9 comes out. But as always, I am your host, Jack.
And I'm your host, Newton.
All right. Ad Astra.